Hello. Would you like to do some karate in the garage?
I'm sorry,
I
what?
would. Yeah, man. Karate in the garage.
Oh, yeah. You're okay. Really leaning into your clothing there, huh?
You know what? Whenever you get a bit, you always gotta lean into it, okay? No matter
Yeah.
what.
Whatever
That's
that
the
bit
secret.
is.
Whatever it is, even if you think it's the stupidest thing in the world, lean 110 into it.
Wise words from a wise man.
Right.
Well, hello everyone. I'm John. That's
Hello.
Steve. Welcome to the Flycast. We this thing does still exist, contrary to popular belief. We've had a couple of rough weeks. Last week we were trying forever to get things to work right, and just didn't happen. But hey, look, we are back now, so that's the good news. We are here, gonna have some fun. We are, if you're new around here, just a couple of nerds, like playing D&D, have a lot of experience between us, DM a lot, have a little community. We're getting questions, and decided, you know what, we've been talking about this for a while, let's go ahead and make a podcast where we just ramble and talk about our nerdy habits, and just kind of have some fun with it. So that's what we do. Welcome. If you are new around here and have not joined the Discord, please do so. There'll be wherever it is that you're watching this. If you're watching live with us, or watching on YouTube, or listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere, there should be a link somewhere to join the Discord. That way, you can find out what it is that we're talking about every week for the Flycast. Get some questions in, because we take questions from the Discord there on the second half of the episode, as well as just kind of stay up to date on whatever else is going on. We stream D&D games and other stuff, so stuff to know and keep up with. Without further ado, though, we're going to go ahead and dive on into our topic for the day. So it was Steve's topic, so you know what, I am going to most of the time I come up with something, throw it by him. He never has any objection to it, and then we say that's what we're going to do. But this was his idea. It was a good idea, so I will just let you go ahead and intro it, and we'll go from there.
All right, so last night after our game, we got talking about characters, and I don't remember what really brought it about, but like when reusing certain characters, when do you want to use them? Like, do you want to reuse them as a player, or if you're running a one-shot, do you want to reuse them? Those are all, good ideas. And then, sometimes, when is it too much?
Right.
Because there are occasions where you can, overdo it, I think. And I think I've been guilty of that a time or two, but at the same time, certain characters make sense for me.
Right.
And I think that's what it's going to do for you. I was telling one of your players, actually, and I was like, because he was like, man, you guys got all these adventures, all these stories, all these characters. I was like, but you're going to have that too.
Right.
You're going to look back and you're going to be like, wow, remember when Kithris did this, or when Phoenix did that, or you're going to have those stories. And sometimes, even though that game is said and done, you may want to replay that character for whatever reason it may be. It could be, nostalgia. It could be, I don't really know what else I want to play, but I really like this character. Maybe I'll tweak it a little bit, and that kind of stuff. So I've done that for other people's games, not always with John's, but whenever I guest star on another person's, and I know in Adrian's game, Vac is made an appearance, because I don't have a ton of time, and I was like, this is a good character to introduce into his arc, and it made 110% chance, or sense.
I know what you mean.
So, well, they don't. You know my ramblings.
Right.
Not everybody does. Yeah. So it's one of those things that I wouldn't call it a crutch, but it was definitely something that helped me, because I run a game. I was running 2. I've taken a break from 1. I'm starting to rerun another, and my time has just gotten consumed. So sometimes you don't have a lot of time to scratch out on paper what your perfect character is. Now, there are people who do. I know Tracy's got like 5 or 6 of them just sitting in the bank.
Apparently, one for every class right now. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, no,
okay.
I think that's all kind of about because we were talking about. I think we were specifically at first talking about my Thursday game because I've got a couple of my old player characters have shown up in that game. And there is one more which I won't reveal. We talked about it last night because neither of them are that I was talking to were in the game, but I will not reveal that for reasons. But there's one more. So like that was kind of a lot of what we were talking about was just kind of like, when you have these characters, whether they be your old player character or an NPC that you made or somebody else's player character, like bringing them back kind of into the world and using them again and kind of how to do that well and whatnot. So I think we had a really good discussion. We were just shooting the shit, but just chatting about it last night. And I think we can have a really cool discussion about that here today too. So, I guess we have some questions that we'll go over later on the second half, but I think it can be a lot of fun to be able to bring in an old character because they're already, well fleshed out. Whether that's as a DM bringing them in as an NPC or even like you were talking about there, Steve, if you have a buddy who needs somebody to jump in the game and whatnot, and you've got 15 minutes to make a character, and you're like, well, I don't want to do it as service. I want to have a real character and not just a shell of a character sheet, but I don't have enough time to really come up with something, so I'm going to pull out Vac because I've played him so often. I know exactly what he's like. I don't have to worry about it too much. So I think there's a whole lot of good that can come from that, and it's a lot of fun to be able to recycle one as an NPC as well and have a full breadth of character motivations and personality traits and whatnot without having to try and kind of artificially come up with all that. It's all there already, right? So like when I bring Nameless into my games, which that's a good example because I've used him a decent amount of times now. I don't have to I don't have to take all this time to build a new NPC or whatever. Nope, I know exactly what that dude's like.
And I think that goes into like themes, as well. So like you got a forest setting, you need a druid. Well, I've played a really interesting druid. We're going to bring this character in, Nameless, and he fits a lot of those molds. Same way with like certain other characters. I know I think and I may be answering this prematurely, but somebody was like, I think it was your wife was asking in chat about, characters. And I know I've brought Vac in because Vac actually started as an NPC.
Yeah, he did.
And then he became a player. He's kind of the opposite of what.
That's actually an interesting idea. I wonder if I were to ever make like Edge of the World as a PC or something like that. That'd be kind of
it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because then you would literally be living out that NPC's, maybe not his exact history that you had from a game or so ago,
right?
But you're recreating in a new, like you got to think of it almost like the New 52 in BC. There are so many universes out there. There's so many games, and you can still play the same character, but you can definitely turn it around a little bit. Like I'm replaying my Dash Wilder character in our home game. And he is a little different. He is he was always reckless, let's be honest. But he has different motivations for that recklessness now. I think he's a little bit more selfless, where I think in the beginning he was more selfish because he was a bard and an entertainer. But
yeah, I don't know that Dash was never not. I mean, he was always a little selfless, at least, because he did, look out for the party quite a bit. But I actually kind of feel like your two iterations of Dash are almost different characters at this point.
They really are. They feel different.
They have a lot of similarities, right? But like, and literally just the change of a class ended up kind of diverting them into two different lanes, which is really interesting.
And also fitting the narrative, because like we were wanting to redo Why Winham Adventure, because you're like, you know, just to kind of set the stage, is like John wanted to retell his story because he felt like he wanted to change it up. So, but by retelling your story, sometimes your characters in your game get all sorts of flipped around. And there was a clear need for a tank. So, of course, I raised my hand. And even though people were like, no, we want you to play the Dash character, I'm like, I agree. I do too. But at the same time, he can still fit this need and still be him, but he'll just be a little different. And I actually like him in this respect because, like, yeah, I can always play him a bard anytime I want. Let's be honest, that's who I am naturally. But playing him as the paladin has given me just a clear-cut, different view. He sees the world a little differently. And like the first game, Dash and religion just didn't mix at all. Well, this game, religion is a part of his life, even though he's like, my famous joke is like, we don't have a committed relationship because I'm not a cleric. I know she's there. She helps me sometimes. I help her sometimes. We both said we're mutual friends in that regard, you know? And I think that's a really cool thing that John lets me do that, because I still keep the tenets. Like, I always want to bring the light to the world. I want to entertain. I always want to seek out justice. Even though I'm not a lawful good character, right now I think he's still actually neutral because of some kind of curse. But he still kind of goes along those lines, and it's really interesting to see how the character can change based off the game that you put them in. And also sometimes how he stays the same.
Yeah, you know? I mean, it could be a lot of fun for both you and for you know, if you're doing this as the DM, for your players as well, to kind of interact with old characters that they either may be familiar with or may have just heard about, right? Like, so for instance, I'll just kind of keep using Nameless because that's such an easy one to do. But Megan, my wife, never played in that game with Nameless. Like, he was one of my PCs. I played Nameless. And she had just kind of heard about him, though, and the first time that she met him was, like, a lot of fun for her. It was like, oh my goodness, this guy is every bit as fun as, like, I've heard about, basically. And now when he shows up, she's excited and is like, yeah, I know him. Like, I remember because he was in that, like, you brought him in as an NPC here, and now, like, everybody, like, enjoys him there. Rupert also, I just brought Rupert into my Thursday night game, and none of them had well, actually, James played with Rupert a little bit, but the rest of them hadn't played with him, and they all...
Oh, they hated him.
They reacted as I expected to.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I feel like they all enjoyed the encounter, getting to know Rupert. So it can be a lot of fun to be able to bring that in and let your players kind of experience that character either again or for the first time, and kind of get to know like. If you're reusing a character, if you're recycling a character, chances are they were memorable for a reason.
For a reason.
If you're recycling a non-memorable character, don't do that. Like, just make a new one. But
just
like,
make a new one, right?
Generally, you're going to want to recycle one that was memorable, and there's a reason for that, and play up that reason, and then, like, everyone's going to have a really good time with it, and it can be a lot of fun. Just go text.
I love it.
That. But yeah, so I think that was I think those were really cool examples right there, and I think it's really cool because when you bring in recycle a character, you have like this starting off point, but then you can also switch things up, kind of like what you did with Dash, and like with Edge of the World, that's an NPC. I've never made him as a player character, but he is an NPC who has appeared in, I think, every single one of my games, except maybe I don't think he's appeared in my Thursday night game yet, but he probably will at some point. And he is always a ranger, but I always kind of change up what kind of ranger he is. Like, he's been a horizon walker at some point. He's been just a straight up a hunter at some point. So, like, you can change that up. I've given him like fighter levels here and there. So that can be a lot of fun. my king, the king of Granada, Eridor Stormcastle. I've made him many times. He's appeared in a decent number of my games. He's always a fighter, but what level he is, what abilities he has, what kind of fighter he is, I change up here and there. So like you can really have a lot of fun with kind of giving an old character that you really liked an alternate build too, right? So like even when I brought Rupert back, he's an illusion wizard, so I made him an illusionist, but like I changed up what spells he has and what abilities he has and whatnot. The other character that I can't really talk too much about yet that may pop up on Thursdays is going to be a much lower level than the character was when I played him, and kind of have a little bit of a different flavor to him. So you can it can be a lot of fun to kind of like explore like an alternate history and an alternate path for that character. And I think that's something to keep in mind too, because when I started like trying to connect things in my world, I tried to keep everything like on a linear timeline, and that's just impossible. Like every game should be its own like Steve was talking about, like a separate part of the multiverse, basically, right? Like you have this game right here takes place in the same world, but it's its own like branching of the timeline, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And that way, Rupert over here can be different than Rupert over there. It's okay. I've brought Dash Wilder in as an NPC in my games a lot, and honestly, the things that happen with Dash are different than what have happened with Dash in any of the actual games with Dash as a PC, and that's fine, and that's actually a lot of fun. And I feel like that's a lot of fun for Steve, too, to be like, what does John do with my character? Like, where does he see this guy going, Which can be really cool, just kind of have that alternate little deviation in the character.
I think another way with PCs, as we were talking about last night, because we go over nostalgia, is some of us were like, man, would it not be cool to get this group back together for like another hurrah? Like, what can we do to use these characters again? I don't know how serious we were, but we were just, really talking about it. And we were talking about, like, from a DM perspective, you could run a one-shot for these players to bring back these characters. Like, I would play Dalton, Tracy would play her paladin, and of course, Jordan would be the enigmatic Aarakocra who never shuts up. And it's amazing.
Here I go killing again.
Here I go killing again. And I'm like, is honestly probably one of my favorite characters he's ever played, because it was just it was simple, but yet like so nice to see that, as a player. It's like just to see Jordan, how he grows. Now he's playing a character that's super conservative and super quiet. Literally his name is Quiet.
Yeah, I think that's another cool idea too. Like when you have these memorable characters, if you have the whole party kind of wants to retread that a little bit, that whole idea of having like a one shot where you can kind of come back together, and it's always fun to roll up a new character and play a new character, but it can also be a lot of fun to kind of step back into those old familiar shoes. And I think, you and I get to do that a lot as DMs, right? Like can, like what I've been doing, right? With Nameless, with Rupert, with he who will not be named yet, no worries, bro.
No worries, man.
It can be a lot of fun to get to step into those old shoes, and giving your players an opportunity to do something like that can be a lot of fun. So I think we should do that at some point for sure.
Right. I love that kind of stuff, because it just helps branch out. It's like, as far as like, I was thinking about the other day. I was like, okay, I know I've used a lot of John's because he's made a lot of memorable characters for me, but like, who can I use in the future? I was like, I'm just going to have to really challenge my players and be like, you know what? If you want to see your character turn back up in another game at some point, make them interesting for me.
And that doesn't mean hog the spotlight or anything, and it doesn't mean try and like be everything and do everything, but make a memorable character. And I would say what makes a character memorable is really the personality of the character and kind of how they behave. Like, I don't think I have brought back a character because I was like, the mechanic that this character had in combat was really cool. Like, that can be true and that can be a lot of fun, but that won't necessarily make a memorable character that you want to recycle. Right, like I bring back Nameless because I really loved his personality. I bring back Rupert because I needed an obnoxious wizard. I bring back Dalton, not Dalton. I bring back Dash. God, good lord, because I mean, he's a great bard. He embodies what a bard is very well. Really cool personality. Like, it just makes a lot of sense a lot of times. These are the characters I bring back. I've brought back some of Jimmy's barbarians before. Although the one that I always bring back will always be Keothi, because he was in my world, and they're all the same. Let's be real. But like,
to one degree or another, absolutely.
Definitely a unique personality there for sure. I've that's what stands out, and what makes them come back as like an NPC or something along those lines.
And I think from a DM perspective too, like, one of the things that I like to do is, but I know I'm notorious for running big parties, but sometimes it's nice to have, like, if you have a weakness in your party, sometimes it's nice to give them an NPC that might fill that role for them, that might help them, which I'm actually considering right now, because we've had normally when I normally plan for at least maybe one person missing a game, and that does happen when you have a big party. But we've ran into a thing with my game recently to where we have all these like support type characters, and now I'm under the challenge of, like, all right, what can we do to help them? So I'm actually considering that. I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but I am considering like having like a damage dealing type character travel with them for a little while. And maybe as an NPC, almost like how, like, when you're in Strahd and you have Ismark the Lesser, and he just goes with you everywhere. So eventually, you just outclass him.
Yeah.
So, or like an item or something. But those are some things I do. Like, before Adrian rerolled his cleric that had the survival skill, I actually had made an NPC. I guess it's not completely on topic, but an NPC who had survival skills to travel with you to help you accomplish your goals. Now, if you have a character that would meet that, like, well, I've been actually thought about using one of Adrian's characters, the one that we really like. What's his name? Ayame.
Yeah.
Because he has like this background of magic and like holiness to him that we could probably use for some kind of like adventure like that. I was actually thinking on the road today, because I was thinking of the topic. I was like, I would like to use Belrizza somewhere, like in a town where tieflings are under strife, and she's coming with the rain of fire. Those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as you're kind of talking about it, I'm thinking kind of like for just like a little bit of a structure, like how to, like, I'm thinking of three main reasons that you would want to, like, as a DM, recycle either a PC or NPC as a new NPC. And I think the three reasons, one, which we've talked a lot about, I feel like, is just a fun roleplay encounter, right? Like, you liked the character, you want to bring him back, your players are going to enjoy it, you're going to have fun with it. That's more or less what Rupert was, but he can certainly become more later on in my Thursday games. I feel like you've done that a decent amount when you kind of bring back, like, well, for instance, you really like your Captain Jack Blackness, the pirate captain guy. He shows up in a decent amount of your games, and he's always just some sort of pirate captain, and but like, it's fun reusing the name, like, everyone, oh, okay, cool, so that's,
gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, exactly. But like, that's just kind of I mean, that's not really a roleplay encounter necessarily, but just kind of it's there for the recognition, and everyone gets to have fun with it, and I know this character, and he's going to do this thing.
Nostalgia moment.
So that's number one right there, and I think that's a great reason to recycle a character. But then the other two, I think, are really good too. So you were touching on the second one, serving a need for the party, helping the party in a specific certain way. I think a good example that I can, well, there's a ton of good examples that I can think of. The one that comes to the top of my head is how Nameless got introduced to my Thursday night games. Honestly, the party found something written in Druidic, which I more or less... No, I knew that I was going to have this group of bad guys know Druidic, but I kind of more or less improv'd in the moment that they found a note because they were searching for things, and why not? They rolled well, cool. But Janice hasn't made an appearance lately. Yeah, that's an example of a good just for the lulz roleplay encounter. But they found this, but then no one could speak Druidic, and they were trying to find someone who could, and I was like, you know who I know I have in my back pocket who can speak Druidic? I'll send them there to Nameless. So that's a great example of kind of they serve a purpose to help the party. I mean, you've had Gareth serve that sort of a purpose before, where we've kind of helped or used him and his wrath towards the gods to help slay some gods and whatnot.
Right.
Like there's definite ways you can do that. And then I think the third reason to kind of recycle someone as an NPC is for like quest reasons and whatnot, right? Like as like a quest giver or like lore reasons or world building reasons, that sort of thing. I think you've certainly done that with Vac, right? Like he's kind of a big quest giver and kind of a lore bringer in some of your games. I've used him as well in some of the same capacities in my games. I think Edge of the World is one that's kind of like that for me too. He doesn't necessarily give out a ton of quests, but more or less helps kind of fill the party in on information. Every once in a while he'll fight alongside you guys and kind of fill that second role. But I think those are kind of like a good 3 reasons to bring back an NPC, either for a good roleplay encounter, for filling a temporary party need, right? You don't want to make a DMPC who goes with the party 1 through 20 and you don't want to do that, but a good temporary party enhancer, basically, or like as like a lore giver, quest giver, that sort of thing.
You don't want them taking over your game.
No,
because like I know my players, because I've been guilty of giving them too many NPCs in the past, and then I get stuck with having so much on my plate. I'm like, good God. But sometimes they'll want to try to keep that PC, and I don't want to. And I'm like you. I don't want that NPC to overshadow them. I want this. Like one of my favorite things is when we did like some of the Forgotten Realms lore, and you guys could literally just go to what's his name, and a lot of times you guys would want something, and he would or need something. He'd be like, "This is your story. This isn't mine. I'm here to back you up if you need it, but I believe in you." Like I want to use the NPCs to empower the characters. Not necessarily to be a complete crutch. Literally a Band-Aid fix maybe for a short amount of time. But I want those guys they don't have to fade off into the sunset. Mm-hmm. But let's just use what happened on Tuesday night. We had Big Tony, the mob boss, who you guys had a contract with. Right. Basically, you guys did him such a good service. He ripped up the remainder of the contract that you owed him money with, gave you a nice parting gift, and even said, hey, if you're around the city of Sharn, hit me up. Maybe I can help out. But like literally, that's what I say, an NPC gracefully kind of bowing out of the picture to let the party shine on their own. You know, that person or that NPC shares his purpose. So like if I have Vac in there, I don't want him to fight with the party for extended periods of time, because that's not his role.
Right.
He's kind of like the Gandalf of a world. He's there to kind of gently nudge you in the right direction, and occasionally he'll get to some fisticuffs. But that's what we want to do. Kind of use him for those moments.
Yeah, I think. So I think if you're using the NPC for kind of like that first reason, just like a fun roleplay encounter or something, I think it's fine for them to kind of like almost take charge in that scene, right? Like, for instance, I kind of instantly think of Season 1 of Critical Role, the crazy old dude who sold Percy black powder. Every time that they went to that NPC, Like, it was just, everyone just watched Matt for a little while. Like, it's just so fun. And that's fine. Like, I don't think that's that big of a deal, but you don't want the NPC taking charge for any more than maybe, like, one quick little scene like that.
Right.
And then I think, like, you touched on something really big, too. If you have a really powerful NPC, the party can potentially lean on this whole, well, why don't you take care of it? You know, it's kind of the whole, well, you know, in every Marvel movie now, where are the Avengers? Why are not the entire Avengers, you know, joining together to stop the problem? You kind of have that issue if you have a really powerful NPC. Right. And I think the two things that I can think of to kind of counteract that is, one, well, don't make the super powerful NPCs, right? Like, make your quest givers and whatnot less powerful than the party. You know, I think that helps. Also, like, yeah, if they're going to maybe even fill a party need, right? If your party has no survival and you need someone who has survival that they kind of like hook up with for just an arc or whatever and still make them kind of weaker, now the party also kind of like feels obligated to try and keep them alive. So it's also kind of like a quest within a quest sort of thing, which can be kind of cool. Or the other thing is, you've got to give them a reason to not always bail the party out. Whether you're okay with just like metaing it and saying, nope, not going to do it. It's not my story. It's yours. Like, that totally works. You know, I think it worked when Elminster told our party that. But I also think, I also think that you can try and find some other like in-game reasons, like what I did with Nameless, when the party was like, "Can you come with us to help take care of this thing?"
Right.
He was really like, "No, like I've got bigger things to take care of." Like, he's worrying about something else entirely, and he's like, "You guys can probably take care of this. I've got my own things that I'm doing. If it gets way out of your hands, come find me again and we'll talk. But for right now, I think you can take care of it, because I'm busy with the entire forest.
I've got,
you know,
XYZ to worry about. I can offer you support in the form of goods, maybe some kind of magic item to aid you on your quest. But while you're doing this character has got to like protect the realm against this dragon or something. They can't just go with you. So it's and that's easy to want to do. I've been guilty of that. Like when you had me, when I played Gareth, it was really easy for me to want to go to my level 20 cleric, adopted mother and ask her for things, but then I learned a lesson that you can't really do that as a player, because then sometimes that thing might get taken away. So you got to find ways to balance it within yourself as a player, and of course, as we DM, we have to balance it as well. So.
And that's the thing, right? Like, I don't expect the players to not try and use all the resources at their disposal. I think it's good that they do, right? Like, they should try and use what resources they have, but then it's your job as a DM to find a way to I don't want to say counteract that, right? Like, you want your players to think outside the box and whatnot, but it's up to you as a DM to come up with a reasonable solution to where, you're not going to have that level 20 NPC come in and just do everything for them, right? Because honestly, that's not what your players want anyway. They want to do it. It's just that, well, they need to, like, in-game, of course they would try this. And then in-game, that powerful character has to say, I can't abandon my, like, whatever other duties that they are currently taking care of, right? With that, we are over halfway through our hour here, so we're going to go ahead and take a break. We will be back in the second half here, taking questions from our Discord. Of course, anyone live, if you've got questions, you can drop them in chat as well, but we will be back in about 3. Peace!
I don't have long hair anymore. I can't shake my hair.
Sorry, bro. That's what happens when you cut it, I guess.
No. Feels bad.
Do you, though?
It's more comfortable. Easier to take care of, I assume.
You'd assume, like, you don't know?
Nah.
Right.
Depends on how much I want to put into it, I suppose.
We are back with the podcast about Steve's hair, apparently.
Right, man. It is gorgeous. I've got good hair.
Oh. I don't have any hair, so, you know.
See, we always gotta take...
You can't tell. The Fly Captain hat kind of covers it, but
yeah.
But no, I'm.
Your beard is way more magnificent than mine.
Well, if you say so.
Oh, I know.
We're back with the Flycast. I'm John. That's Steve. You've been hanging out with us. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here, or if you're watching on YouTube later on, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you have not, go ahead and join our Discord. That way you can leave questions in advance, figure out what we're doing leading up to our episode for the week, and kind of keep yourselves posted on whatever else we got going on. Today we are talking about well, I was about to say we're talking about NPCs, but that's only kind of true. We're talking about like recycling characters, old PCs or NPCs, bringing them back into games either as a new player character or NPC. So we've been chatting about that. We're going to go ahead and take some questions here. We've got questions from our Discord that we will certainly go into. But first, we got a question here in chat that I'll let Steve take the lead on there. So, question was, that's a bit alone, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to do the whole chosen one story where there's no feeling of danger for the players, but what are some techniques to employ without being overly harsh?
Honestly, like, I love, like, because I am notorious for making really strong NPCs, but at the same time, I'm also notorious to, like, if the player's like, well, why can't you go do that? And I will just straight up say, because this is your story. Because, like, if you think about it, if you've made an NPC, like, whether it's like a homebrew or you're using an NPC from like the Forgotten Realms world, you know, if you're playing that kind of a character, you know, that NPC has their own problems. Maybe they have to go take care of a dragon that might be assaulting, like, you know, Waterdeep, or they're wanting you to go and investigate the giants in the, like, you know, in Ten Towns area. You know, they're working for the, you know, for the, what is it, the Harpers, and they're wanting to, you know, he needs you to go do that because you're basically either being employed by him or he needs your help, you know, because it's a party of do-gooders, you know. And there's also the thing that sometimes, like, there's certain NPCs that you might not actually want to take with you. Like, if you purposely make them like a lower level, that NPC can't actually help you solve the problem without help. So those are ways of kind of balancing it without, like, you want that NPC to have like an air of power about them, that if the party decides to act up, you know, you can smack them down really quick. But at the same time, you know, that you want to use that NPC to support the characters and empower them to do their thing. So if you have like a character you've played for years, we'll just say his name is Bob because I love the name Bob. And he's a level 20, you know, sorcerer, and he's stupid powerful, but he needs you to go and get him a dragon scale, but he's got to go into a lich's lair to, you know, do something else to defend the realm. That's another way of balancing it. You know, that NPC may be able to help them learn a spell. He may be able to give them some kind of coaching, some kind of guidance, direction on where to go, with at the same time not completely holding your party's hand. So Bob serves two purposes. He's going to be your quest giver. He's going to be your party support. If the players need a place to rest, he's got a place that they could crash at. So that's how I balance it. Personally, is like that NPC, and that's not to say that NPC won't show up with the party sometime and wreck some face, because I have done that before too. So, but you just don't want them to be the end all be all. You know, we're going to lean on this player's NPC forever. You want them to empower the player.
Yeah, I think that's all good. I think also just kind of like speaking in general, like a little bit off topic, but just to the core of like kind of like just balancing difficulty. I think first of all, for me to kind of avoid the whole there's no danger anywhere, I purposefully let the party get into very dangerous situations all the time. I think like
Oh yeah,
the trope of the party getting into a town or even a city and just being able to do whatever they want to because they're so powerful. Yeah, I squash that real quick. The town is more powerful than the party. The area around the town is more powerful than the party. The city will not hesitate to throw the party in jail or execute them if need be. I think doing things along those lines, surrounding them with things that are more powerful than themselves, kind of help to be like, no, the world is dangerous. You can't do whatever you want. However, when they're going on their quests and whatnot, letting them still be powerful. I think that's a really, it can be kind of hard to find that balance until you kind of play around for a while, but I think that's really important because I've had, honestly, as a player, it can be kind of fun to be like, oh, we just stomp all over everything, but I think it's more fun to be challenged. And as a DM, honestly, when my players start to get like, oh yeah, well, we'll just take care of it because we're so good, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, so I need to dial this up. Got it. Okay. And I have no problem with messing with stat blocks and granting, like, for instance, all of my bosses always have legendary actions, because I want the boss to be a boss. I want the boss to be powerful.
Right.
So that's a little off topic, but just kind of like in difficulty balance in general. With that, let's go ahead and get to some of these Discord questions. We don't have a ton, but that's cool because we only have like 10, 15 minutes left of the podcast. So let's just kind of nail these down here. First question, how do you deal with a former PC that you're using as an NPC getting killed? Or would you just not let them get killed?
Like, not let the NPC. I mean, I've killed NPCs before.
How do you deal with a former PC that you're using as an NPC getting killed?
Hey, let it happen.
Yeah,
I totally let it happen.
I agree. I feel like the problem there is if you're trying to keep everything in a linear timeline, right?
Because like I've had one of my player characters, Grindel, he served a purpose in a world hopping adventure, and I actually killed him myself. I made him die of a heart attack. His purpose was over, and it was one of those things. It was cruel to be kind to my players because they're like, "Oh, can we keep the little adorable asshole?" No, he dies of a heart attack because he served his purpose for you guys.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think like it's difficult to kind of deal with this if you're trying to keep a linear timeline, but yeah, that's how I deal with it, right? Is every game is more or less an alternate timeline. It's shooting off of that main it's the Biff world in second Back to the Future movie, right?
35.
It's not the 616 universe, it's 1062 or whatever.
Right.
It's Earth 5, not Earth 1, etc. I think those that's key right there. And in that case, you know what? It would really suck to see one of my PCs get killed or whatever, right? But that's they're an NPC. They're not the star of the story. The players are, or the players' characters are. So whatever.
Right. And again, you can bring them back in another form or another fashion.
Exactly.
If that PC or if former PC NPC dies, I mean, like it would wound me a little bit. I'll be honest. Some of them I don't like to see die,
right.
But at the same time, like it's no skin off my back if Gareth bites it. He's just going to regenerate and
exactly
reincarnate somewhere else. if Vac bites it, he's going to come back in another form. I mean, that's just how those characters were designed. But yeah.
Have you ever experienced a player continually recycle the same character for multiple campaigns? And how would you feel about that if you haven't?
I don't think I have, but I normally communicate with people ahead of time. I'm like, hey, challenge yourself to make something different. If you feel like, no, I take that back. I have had somebody do that. Mutt did that for a while. He played like basically the same like characters in a row. He played 2 blood hunters in 2 different campaigns, and I think I actually
werewolf
was like, hey,
blood hunters.
werewolf blood hunters. I'm like, hey, challenge yourself to do something else too, because even though I know this is like a go-to for you, try to fill another role. Get creative. Like, let's work with your backstory a little bit. That's where you communicate with us. And if you're truly stumped on something, we'll workshop it with you. I can't tell you how many times I shoot with John, friend Tracy, and Jordan about my own campaign ideas, because sometimes I get stuck. I'm like, get out of your comfort zone, try something else. Now, that's if you go back into our recent podcast, if you don't like that PC that you made, we can always work something else out and retire.
I think it was the last one we talked about that.
Right. So, like, get out of your comfort zone and try to do something else. Because, like, everybody wants, like, when you're playing in a game, we all want to try different things, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have to be a bard every single time or a wizard. What if I want to fill that role of my barbarian Hulk Hogan? What if I want to be this dumb, axe-wielding dumbass who just wants to, like, get in front and just get into fights? That scratches my acting itch, like when you don't like to get settled in a role when you're role playing.
Right.
So I try to challenge you guys to do that.
Yeah, I don't think I've had this exactly really a whole lot. The closest thing I can think of is Jimmy and his barbarians, because he plays a Goliath barbarian, Path of the Bear, in almost every game that he's played with us. But whatever, that's fine. That's what he has fun with. I've never had the situation though where Steve always plays his human paladin named Gareth in every single campaign. Like I've never had something like that. And that could be obnoxious, but honestly, if that's what a player wants to do and they have fun with it, I mean, I'm not gonna not let them do it. But I agree. I think I would challenge them to try something new at least, which I have before. I've kind of challenged people to maybe not do the same thing over and over and over, not always play the elf wizard, not always play the Goliath barbarian, not always play the edgelord werewolf. But again, though, like people kind of fall into
shots fired
into certain types of characters, but I don't think I've seen someone continuing playing the same character again and again and again. Now, like you can totally do that a little bit, right? Like a number of us have characters that we have made that we'll just pull into one shots and whatnot. And I think that's a perfect time to do it, right? Like, yeah, I've got this Hulk Hogan character that I like to play every once in a while, and we're playing a new one shot, and you know what? It would be fun to bring him back in. And I think that's cool. It's not like every time we play a one shot, you're playing the same character. You're just recycling them here and there, and I think that's a great way to do that.
And let's be honest, he's kind of a joke character, but he's also easy to make. So like if somebody needs help, like I filled in on one of John's games because he's like, hey man, they might need a hand. I'm like, yeah, I'll be happy to. And I just play this over the top pro wrestler barbarian, and he filled the role. He did what he needed to do, and then he disappeared. So it's fun stuff like that too.
Running out of time here, so we're gonna go quick through a couple of these. How often do you recycle your own characters versus another player's character? For instance, I know I've used some of yours before, so on and so forth. So yeah, what would you say?
I think I need to challenge myself to use other people's characters because it's a comfort zone for me to use yours or mine, because we put a lot of thought. We put a lot of thought and time into our characters, and I think it would be interesting to start developing other people's. And that's on me.
I agree.
So,
I agree. I have pretty much the same answer. It's easiest to use my own because I know the character so well, right?
Right.
And then it's also rather easy for me to use yours because I've seen them more and I know them better.
Right.
But yeah, I would love to because I think it's a lot of fun when your old character shows up, right? So I would love
I
to
get
do
tickled.
that more for, for Tracy, for well, I feel like I've used Nakis before somewhere. I could be wrong.
You have. You've
Um,
used Nakis before.
and I know
He
I've
actually
used Seven a
was one
little
of the
bit, so
PCs.
like I would like to do that more for like other characters though and whatnot, and kind of cross games, right? Like just because, and that's the thing too. Like I have a world that is my world, and every game that I run takes place in this world, so it's real easy to reuse characters from my games. But there's nothing saying that I can't reuse a character like I'm reusing Rupert right now, who was never in my
Not
world.
even
Who
close.
cares? It doesn't matter. Like. So yeah, I want to recycle other people's characters more, but yeah, I'm kind of with you there. When is it appropriate to insert an old PC as an NPC? I think we've talked about this before, and I think we've kind of come up with these 3 arbitrary rules in the talking about it. But as a good like role play or even combat encounter, like just serving kind of a one-time reason there, as party support for a temporary time, or like as a lore giver, quest giver, something along those lines. I think those are the 3 that we've kind of come down with, unless you have another answer to that.
No, I think that's good.
And then our last Discord question, then, the obvious one that you might answer. We didn't actually talk about this yet, though. What has been your favorite recycle or reuse of a character, whether a PC or NPC?
Ooh. Man,
This is tough.
That's hard.
Yeah.
Because there's so many good ones.
I think we'll nail it down to, like, in your game, and I'll do in my games.
Good lord. I mean, if like an honest answer, I've only used him once, but I liked your Dark Elf because it was fun to use him to fuck with the party.
Yeah.
But I think the go-to would be Vac because he actually started as an NPC.
Yeah.
And he can fill that role. Now that doesn't mean he gets used all the time anymore because he has been used a lot. I think it's where I've actually had to shelf him for a while and trying to think of other things to bring in because he's easy to go to.
Yeah. There are so many for me, it's kind of hard. I think
hard.
Though my favorite is probably I'm probably gonna have
Markle.
Oh yeah, Markle's pretty great. I like when he shows up.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, it's so hard. I love whenever I can bring Markle in, whenever he shows up. I love when you guys get to meet Nameless and whenever he shows up. I love when I get to bring in Dash and he shows up. I think, though, my favorite is going to be Malrus, my Drow assassin.
Yeah.
Just because the rest of these guys, when I bring them in, for the most part, the party's like, oh, cool, it's fun to interact with them and get to see them, and even some of my other villains, it's like, oh yeah, I know what that means. But when Malrus shows up, it's just like, oh, this guy,
this motherfucker,
and whenever Malrus shows up, Tracy knows, oh great, so I'm not playing this combat. I get it. I'm already down. I know, because every time he shows up, it's to assassinate her. I think, I don't know, I have fun with it because it's a time when I can, like, go all out with this crazy assassin who's literally just trying to kill one of the party and is stalking them, and I have a lot of fun with that. Maybe I'm just a jerk. Those are all our Discord questions. I want to circle back around to the chat question, though, which doesn't necessarily tie in with the topic, but just talking about kind of balancing things and putting the players in somewhat humbling situations to not let them get to this, like, oh, nothing can hurt us mode, and trying to get, so, like, what's an example of kind of a humbling situation for the party? I think anything that kind of forces them to realize that the threats around them are bigger than what they thought it was. One that I can think of is I had the party needed to go and they had to compete in this, like, arena fight. And they had just kind of come off of killing mind flayers in the Underdark and whatnot, so they get into this thing and they're told they need to go through the Crucible in this arena, and the party's like, yeah, well, I mean, it's just an arena fight. We killed a mind flayer. We're whatever. We'll just do the thing.
Yeah, we're badasses, right?
And I brought out these like orc and minotaur gladiators that were no joke. And obviously the party won, and they got through it all and whatnot. But pretty quickly they realized, oh, this isn't going to be just the stomp that we thought it was. We were feeling a little too cocky coming into that. I think, yeah, combat like that can accomplish that. I think another one that I actually can think of that really didn't result in a combat encounter was I had a level, I think they were a level 2 party. It was my Thursday night game, and I had a band of ruffians come into the inn, basically demand to take the rooms from the party, and the innkeeper obliged and let them do whatever. And of course the party was not okay with that. And the monk came on over and took their, like, either a dagger or a dart or something and slammed it into the hand of one of these, bandit guys or whatever, rolled a natural 20 on an attack, and ended up dealing no damage to the person because they were a werewolf in human form and were immune to non-magical, non-silvered weapons. The party, of course, had no idea why it did no damage, but just the sheer fact that one of the characters crit on an attack and did nothing at all to the creature, the party instantly knew, we can't fight this. It humbled the party quite a bit to where they were just like, okay, that sent the message loud and clear, and they just left. Maybe a really powerful use of magic can kind of do something similar, right? When I feeble-minded Dash a few weeks ago, the party realized, this thing we're fighting is actually really powerful. Those are just some examples off the top of my head, unless you have any others.
No, that hurt, because most people know my play styles. If I'm gonna die, so be it. But man, not like that.
Right.
Not like this.
Well, with that is all our questions. We are at our time anyway, so that is the Flycast this week. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Again, if you have not, go ahead and join the Discord. If you're watching wherever, follow, subscribe, whatever the term is on whatever the medium you're watching or listening to this is, that'd be great. Moving forward, we my Thursday night game is every other week, but we had kind of a scheduling conflict for our next one, so we're actually playing tomorrow. It's back-to-back weeks, but we're playing tomorrow. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be doing that Thursday night game. The party's fighting some gnolls and trying to lift a curse, and one of them just found a artifact and became a warlock. So all sorts of fun stuff going on in that game. Should be a lot of fun. Then we will be back on Wednesday, of course, with next week with another Flycast episode. Don't know what that will be. We'll have another Wine Women Adventure Tour in another week or so on a Sunday.
Yep.
But that's what we got going on over here. Over at twitch.tv/Stevo the DMO. He streams over there. Steve streams over there. He'll be doing some D&D prep, some Destiny, maybe some Dark Alliance. You never know what he'll do or when he'll do it.
Very eclectic.
A lot of times he likes to stream after the Flycast, so might be on later on today. I don't really know.
Yep. We'll see. I have no idea what we're doing.
But that's that. He's got his own Discord as well. If you want to follow along there, he'll post when he goes live. But until next time, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and hope to see you tomorrow and next week.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Thank you very much.